Jake Morrison stood at the command station on the bridge of the exploration ship Horizon's Edge. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he didn't notice. The stars outside the large windows lit the same as they had for the past 3 months. Empty space stretched in all directions, filled with nothing but distant suns and the quiet hum of the ship's engines. The mission was simple enough. Survey the outer rim territories, check for habitable planets, and report back to Earth Command. It was routine work that most officers found boring. Jake liked it that way. After 5 years of military service, boring was good. Boring meant no one was shooting at him. "Sir, we're picking up something strange," said Communications Officer Ryan Torres from his station. He was young, maybe 25, with dark hair and the kind of eager expression that reminded Jake of himself 10 years ago. "Define strange," Jake said, walking over to look at Ryan's screen. "It's a transmission, sir. But it's coming from the Kepler 442 system." Jake frowned. "That's impossible. There are no human settlements out there. We haven't even sent probes." "That far? I know, sir. But the signal is definitely artificial. And, sir," Ryan paused, looking confused. "It's music." "Music? Yes, sir. A violin, I think. Playing some kind of melody." Jake stared at the display showing the signal's origin point. The Kepler 442 system was over 40 light years from the nearest human colony. Even their fastest ships would take months to reach it. No human had ever been there. Could it be a mistake? Maybe the signal is from somewhere else and got bounced around. Ryan shook his head. "I've checked 3 times, sir. The signal is definitely coming from Kepler 442. And there's something else. The transmission is incredibly strong. Whatever is sending it has serious power behind it." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. In his experience, strange things in space were usually dangerous things. "Play it." Ryan hit a button, and the bridge filled with music. It was beautiful, haunting, and unlike anything Jake had ever heard. The violin melody seemed to dance through the air, rising and falling with perfect precision. But there was something else about it, something that made the hair on his arm stand up. The music felt alive. "How long has this been playing?" Jake asked. "According to our sensors, the transmission started about 6 hours ago. But, sir, that's not the weird part." "There's a weird part?" Ryan pulled up another screen. "The music isn't random. Look at this pattern analysis. The melody repeats every 12 minutes and 37 seconds. Exactly. No variation at all." Jake studied the readout. Ryan was right. The pattern was perfect, mathematical. Natural music, even recorded. Music usually had tiny variations. This was too precise to be human. "Have you told Captain Foster?" "Not yet, sir. I wanted to run more tests first." "Get her up here, now." A few minutes later, Captain Amy Foster arrived on the bridge. She was in her early 40s, with short blonde hair and the kind of calm presence that made everyone feel safer. She had been commanding deep space missions for over 15 years, and Jake had never seen her look worried. Until now. "Report," she said, listening to the music that still played softly in the background. Jake explained what they had found. Foster listened without interruption, her face growing more serious with each detail. "Any chance this is some kind of test from Earth Command?" she asked. "No, ma'am," Ryan said. "I checked all the military frequencies. This isn't one of ours." Foster was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the stars. Could it be a distress signal? Maybe, Jake said. But from who? There are no human settlements in that system. Number. Colonies, no research stations, nothing. Dr. Lisa Chun chose that moment to walk onto the bridge. She was the ship's science officer, a small woman with dark hair and eyes that seemed to notice everything. She had been studying the Outer Rim's plant and animal life for the past year. "I couldn't help but overhear," she said. "Did you say someone is broadcasting music from an unexplored system?" "That's right," Foster said. "What do you think, Doc?" Lisa listened to the melody for a few seconds, Her head tilted to one side. "I know this song." Everyone turned to look at her. "You know it?" Jake asked. "It's called Every Breath You Take." It was written by a band called The Police back in the 1980s. But this version, it's different, more complex. "How do you know an old Earth song?" Ryan asked. Lisa smiled. "I studied music before I became a scientist. This melody is definitely based on that song, but someone has changed it, added layers that weren't in the original." Foster looked troubled. "So someone out there knows human music well enough to modify it. It would seem so." Jake felt that chill again. "Captain, I think we need to investigate this." Foster nodded slowly. "I agree, but first, I want more information. Doc, can you analyze this signal more carefully? See if there's anything else hidden in it?" "Of course. Ryan, keep monitoring the transmission. See if it changes or if any other signals join it." "Yes, ma'am." Foster turned to Jake. "Set course for the Kepler 442 system. Best speed." "Ma'am, that will take us 3 weeks to reach." "Aye." "No, but something is out there, and it knows about us. I want to find out what before it finds us." As the ship changed course, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were flying towards something that would change everything. The music continued to play, beautiful and mysterious, calling them across the emptiness of space. 3 hours later, Lisa Chen made another discovery. The music wasn't just a simple melody. Hidden within the violin notes were complex mathematical patterns, star charts, and what looked like technical blueprints for technology far beyond human understanding. "Captain," she said over the intercom, "you need to see this. The transmission isn't just music. It's a data package. Someone is trying to tell us something very important." Jake looked out at the stars ahead of them, wondering what they would find when they reached their destination. The music played on, carrying its hidden message across the void, waiting for someone to understand its meaning. The Horizon's Edge flew through space toward the unknown, carrying its crew toward a discovery that would change the fate of humanity forever. 3 weeks later, the Horizon's Edge dropped out of faster than light, travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Jake Morrison watched the main screen as the ship's sensors began scanning the area. What they found made everyone on the bridge go silent. "Captain," Ryan Torres said, his voice barely above a whisper, "you need to see this." The main screen showed a massive structure orbiting the fourth planet in the system. It was unlike anything in human records. The object was roughly the size of a small moon, but it seemed to be made entirely of crystal. It caught the light from the system's star and reflected it in brilliant colors that hurt to look at directly. "What is that thing?" Captain Foster asked. Dr. Lisa Chun was already running scans from her station. "It's artificial, that's for sure. The structure is perfectly symmetrical. And Captain, the music signal is coming from inside it." Jake studied the readings. "Any signs of life?" "Hard to tell," Lisa said. "The crystal material is blocking most of our sensors, but there's definitely power running through the structure. Lots of it." Foster walked to the front of the bridge, staring at the strange object. "Any weapon signatures?" "None that I can detect," Ryan reported. "Whatever it is, it doesn't seem hostile." "Famous last words," Jake muttered. Foster turned to him. "What do you recommend, Commander?" Jake thought for a moment. "We should try to communicate first. If that doesn't work, we send a small team to investigate." "Agreed." "Ryan, open a channel to that structure, all frequencies." Ryan worked at his console for several minutes. "Channel open, Captain." "This is Captain Amy Foster of the human exploration vessel Horizon's Edge. We have received your transmission and have come to investigate. Please respond." They waited. The only sound was the continued violin music, still playing the same modified version of Every Breath You Take. "Try again," Foster said. Ryan repeated the message in several different languages, but there was no response. "The structure is scanning us," Lisa announced. "Some kind of energy beam just swept over the ship." Jake tensed. "Weapons?" "No, It feels more like an examination, like it's trying to figure out what we are. Suddenly, the music stopped. After 3 weeks of constant melody, the silence felt strange and unsettling. "Captain," Ryan said, "I'm getting a new signal. It's not music this time. It looks like language patterns." The main screen flickered, and symbols began appearing. They were beautiful, flowing shapes that seemed to dance across the display. After a few seconds, the symbols began changing, becoming simpler, more geometric. "It's trying to communicate," Lisa said excitedly. "The symbols are evolving, becoming more basic. It's learning how to talk to us." The symbols continued to change until they formed recognizable letters. "Hey, LLO." "Well," Foster said, "that's a start." "Ryan, send back the same message." Ryan typed "hello" into the communication system. The response was immediate. More words appeared on the screen. "Welcome, music makers." Jake felt a chill. "Music makers?" The words continued to appear. "We have waited long time for you to come." Foster stepped forward. "We are explorers from the planet Earth. Who are you?" "We are Melodians. We watch, we listen, we learn." "Why did you send us music?" "Music is universal language. Your music is special, different from others." Lisa looked puzzled. "Others? What others?" The screen flickered again, and a new message appeared. "Come to US. We have much to show you. Bring music makers." Foster looked around the bridge. "Music makers. I think they mean musicians. I can play guitar," Ryan offered. "I have my violin." Lisa said, "I brought it for the long journey." Foster nodded. "Jake, prepare a shuttle. Small team only. You, me, Dr. Chun, and Torres." An hour later, their shuttle approached the crystal structure. Up close, it was even more impressive. The surface was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with internal light. As they got closer, an opening appeared in the crystal wall. "They're letting us in," Jake said, piloting the shuttle through the opening dot inside. The structure was vast and beautiful. Crystal formations created a maze of corridors and chambers, all glowing with soft light. The air was breathable, and gravity was close to Earth normal. "This way," a voice said. It came from everywhere and nowhere, speaking directly into their minds. They followed the mental directions through the crystal maze until they reached a large central chamber. In the center stood a tall, thin figure that seemed to be made of the same crystal as the structure. It was beautiful in an alien way, with long limbs and a face that had too many angles to be human. "Welcome, music makers," the being said, its voice echoing in their minds. "I am Conductor Veltar, last of the Melodians." "Last?" Foster asked. "My people are gone. We were the watchers of this galaxy, listeners to the songs of all living things. But a great danger comes, and we could not stop it alone." The chamber around them began to change, showing images in the crystal walls. They saw star systems, alien civilizations, and beautiful music made of light and sound. "For thousands of your years, we have watched and listened. We catalog the music of every species we find. Each race has its own song, its own rhythm of life." "Why music?" Lisa asked. "Music is the voice of consciousness. It is how thinking beings express what cannot be said in words. It is the sound of the soul." The images change, showing the Melodians' vast collection of songs from across the galaxy. "We have collected the music of 300 species. But your human music is different. It is chaotic, emotional, imperfect. Other species make music that follows rules, but humans break rules to make something beautiful." Jake was starting to understand. "You think our music is special? More than special. It is the key to saving all life in this galaxy." The chamber grew dark and new images appeared. They showed empty star systems, dead planets, and a creeping darkness that seemed to swallow light and sound. "The silence comes," Veltar said. "It is an ancient enemy that feeds on the songs of living worlds." It has already consumed 47 civilizations. We tried to stop it, but our music was too ordered, too predictable. The silence learned to counter it. But human music is different, Foster said. Yes, your music comes from emotion, from pain and joy and love. It cannot be predicted or copied. It is alive in a way that other music is not. Veltar gestured, and the violin music began playing again, but now they could see it as the melodians did, as patterns of light and energy that danced through the air. This song you call Every Breath You Take, we have changed it, made it more complex. It contains the key to fighting the silence, but only humans can use it. Jake felt the weight of what they were being told. You want us to fight this silence? We want you to save everyone. The silence has found your galaxy. It comes for Earth and all human worlds. But if you can learn to use your music as a weapon, you can stop it. The chamber filled with new images, star charts, battle plans, and something that looked like sheet music written in mathematics. Will you help us, music makers? Veltar asked. Will you learn to fight with songs? Foster looked at her team, then back at the alien being. We'll try, but we'll need to warn Earth, prepare our people. Yes, and we will teach you. The silence comes in one of your years. You must be ready. As the melodian began to share the secrets of musical warfare, Jake realized their simple exploration mission had become something much bigger. They were no longer just explorers. They were about to become the galaxy's first musical warriors. Conductor Veltar led the human team deeper into the crystal structure. The walls around them began to glow brighter, and Jake Morrison could feel something like music in the air, even though no sound was playing. It was as if the entire building was alive and humming just below the range of human hearing. What you are about to see will be difficult, Veltar said, his mental voice carrying sadness that seemed to echo through the crystal corridors. But you must understand what the silence truly is. They entered a vast chamber filled with floating crystal spheres. Each sphere showed different scenes, like windows into other worlds. Captain Foster stopped in front of one that showed a beautiful blue planet with silver cities and flying vehicles. This was Harmony Prime, Veltar explained. Home to the singers, a species that could create music with their minds. Their entire civilization was built around sound. Every building, every tool, every work of art was made through sonic manipulation. The image in the crystal sphere began to change. The silver cities started to fade, becoming gray and lifeless. The flying vehicles fell from the sky. The singers themselves began to collapse, their bodies becoming still and silent. The silence found them 3 years ago, Veltar continued. It took only 6 days to consume their entire world. Dr. Lisa Chun moved to another sphere. This one showed a world covered in massive forests, where tree-like beings swayed in complex patterns that created haunting melodies. The Rhythm Keepers, Veltar said. They lived for 8,000 years, creating music through their movements. The silence took them in 4 days. Jake watched the scene play out. The tree beings began to slow their movements, then stopped completely. The forest became still and dead, no longer making their beautiful sounds. How does it work? Foster asked. How does the silence consume music? Veltar gestured, and the chamber around him changed. The crystal walls now showed something that hurt to look at directly, a darkness that seemed to move and breathe, but in a way that was completely wrong. The silence is not just one creature, Veltar explained. It is a species, but not like any other. They exist in the spaces between sounds, in the quiet moments between notes. They feed on the vibrations that all living things create simply by being alive. Ryan Torres stared at the dark shapes in the crystal display. They eat sound itself? More than that. They consume the patterns that sound creates in the minds of thinking beings. When a species makes music, they create complex neural pathways in their brains. The silence feeds on these pathways, leaving the beings unable to think, to feel, to Be truly alive. Lisa looked horrified. They're eating consciousness itself. Yes, and once they consume a world's music, that world becomes part of them. The dead planets serve as bases for their expansion. They turn living worlds into silent graveyards. Jake studied the movement patterns of the silent creatures. How do they travel? Do they have ships? They do not need ships as you understand them. They move through space itself, using the quantum vibrations that exist everywhere. Where there is matter, there is vibration. Where there is vibration, the silence can travel. Foster walked to the center of the chamber. You said they've consumed 47 civilizations. How long have they been doing this? We believe they have existed for millions of years, moving from galaxy to galaxy. They may have destroyed entire galactic clusters before reaching ours. The weight of this information settled over the human team. They were facing an enemy that had been destroying civilizations for longer than humans had existed. Why haven't you stopped them? Jake asked. The Melodians seem advanced enough. Veltar's crystal form seemed to dim slightly. We tried. When the silence first appeared in our galaxy, we gathered the greatest musicians from 50 different species. We created a harmony so perfect, so mathematically precise, that we thought it would drive them away. The chamber showed images of a massive concert with beings of many different shapes and sizes all playing music together in perfect coordination. What happened? Lisa asked. The silence listened to our music, learned its patterns, and then turned it against us. Perfect harmony, we discovered, can be perfectly countered. Mathematical precision can be mathematically defeated. Within hours, they had created their own version of our harmony, one that canceled out our music completely. Jake was beginning to understand. That's why human music is different. Exactly. Human music is imperfect. It comes from emotion, not calculation. A human musician will play the same song differently each time, depending on how they feel. This chaos, this beautiful unpredictability, cannot be easily copied or countered. Foster looked at the displays showing the destroyed worlds. But we're just one species. How can we fight something that has destroyed entire civilizations? Because you are not just one species anymore, Veltar said. Humans have spread across many worlds, developed many different cultures. Your music has evolved in different directions on different planets. Earth jazz is different from Mars classical, which is different from Europa folk songs. Ryan looked confused. I don't see how that helps. Diversity is strength against the silence. When they learn to counter one type of human music, there are dozens of other types they have not heard. And humans do something no other species does. You mix different musical styles together, creating new forms constantly. The chamber began showing recordings of human music from across the colonies. Rock music from the mining worlds, electronic. Music from the space stations, hybrid styles that combine Earth traditions with the sounds of other planets. The silence expects patterns, Veltar continued. They expect music to follow rules. But humans break rules as easily as breathing. You create beauty from chaos, harmony from discord. This is your weapon. Lisa pulled out her violin. Show us. How to use it. Veltar gestured, and the chamber filled with complex diagrams made of light and sound. Music can be more than entertainment. It can be a force that affects reality itself. The right combination of notes, played with the right intention, can create vibrations that disrupt the silence's feeding patterns. Like a weapon made of sound, Jake said. Exactly. But it requires practice, understanding, and most importantly, genuine emotion. The music must come from the heart, not just the mind. Foster studied the diagrams. How long do we have to prepare? Our scouts report that the silence has reached the edge of your galaxy. They are moving slowly, consuming outer rim worlds first. Earth has perhaps 1 year before they arrive. The human team looked at each other. 1 year to prepare their entire species for a war unlike any other. We'll need to warn everyone, Foster said. Every human colony, every ship, everyone who can make music. Yes, Veltar agreed, and we will help you. The remaining Melodian technology, our knowledge of sound warfare, all of it is yours to use. Jake felt a mixture of fear and determination. 1 year to turn the human race into musical warriors. The fate of all life in this galaxy depends on it, Veltar said. The silence must be stopped here, or it will continue to consume worlds until nothing remains but empty space. As they prepared to return to their ship with the most important message in human history, Jake wondered if humanity was truly ready for this challenge. But looking at his teammates, seeing the determination in their eyes, he began to think they might have a chance after all. The journey back to human space took 2 weeks. During that time, Jake Morrison barely slept. He spent his days working with Dr. Lisa Chun and the Melodian data, trying to understand how music could become a weapon. The information Veltar had given them was vast and complex, but slowly they began to make sense of it. Look at this, Lisa said, pointing to her screen. They were in the ship's laboratory, surrounded by musical instruments and computer displays. The Melodian records show that sound waves can be focused and amplified to create physical effects. Jake studied the data. Like what kind of effects? Disruption fields, energy barriers, even localized gravity changes. It's like the universe itself responds to certain musical patterns. Ryan Torres entered the lab carrying his guitar. Over the past 2 weeks, he had been practicing the techniques Veltar had taught them. I think I'm getting the hang of it, he said. Watch this. He began playing a simple melody, but something was different about it. The air around the guitar seemed to shimmer, and Jake felt a tingling sensation on his skin. The strings are vibrating at frequencies that go beyond normal sound, Lisa explained. Ryan is somehow tapping into quantum resonances. It feels weird, Ryan said, still playing. Like the music is alive and trying to talk to me. Captain Foster's voice came over the intercom. All hands, prepare for arrival at Mars Colony. We'll be docking in 1 hour. Jake felt nervous. Mars Colony was their first stop, and they had to convince billions of humans that an ancient alien threat was coming to destroy all life in the galaxy. It sounded crazy even to him, and he had seen the evidence firsthand. Mars Colony was humanity's oldest settlement outside Earth. The domed cities housed over 50 million people, and it served as the military headquarters for the outer colonies. If they could convince Mars, they could convince anyone. Admiral Kate Murphy met them at the docking bay. She was a stern woman in her 60s who had commanded deep space fleets for most of her career. Jake had served under her before and knew she didn't believe in anything she couldn't see and touch. Commander Morrison, she said, shaking his hand. I got your preliminary report. Alien music weapons? Really? I know how it sounds, Admiral. But we have proof. They spent the next 3 hours in a secure briefing room, showing Murphy and her staff everything they had learned. The videos of destroyed worlds, the Melodian technology, and most importantly, demonstrations of the musical abilities Ryan had developed. Play something, Foster told Ryan. Ryan picked up his guitar and began playing a modified version of an old Earth song. As the music filled the room, the lights began to flicker. The metal table they were sitting around started to vibrate, creating a low humming sound that harmonized with the guitar. Admiral Murphy stared as her coffee cup began to move across the table, pushed by invisible sound waves. How is that possible? She asked. The music creates resonance patterns that affect matter at the molecular level, Lisa explained. It's like the difference between random noise and a focused laser beam. Murphy was quiet for a long moment. You're telling me that some kid with a guitar can move objects with music? That's just the beginning, Jake said. According to the Melodian data, humans who practice these techniques can do much more. Create force fields, disrupt energy patterns, even affect the behavior of quantum particles. And you believe this will work against these silence creatures? It's our only hope, Foster said. Traditional weapons won't work. The silence exists in the spaces between matter. But music, especially human music, can reach into those spaces. Murphy stood up and walked to the window overlooking the main colony dome. Thousands of people went about their daily lives below, unaware that their entire existence was under threat. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Less than a year," Jake sighed. "The silence is already in our galaxy, moving toward the core systems. And you want me to mobilize the entire human military to learn how to play musical instruments?" "We want you to mobilize everyone," Foster corrected. "Soldiers, civilians, children, everyone who can make music. This isn't a job for just the military." Murphy turned back to face them. "Do you have any idea how insane this sounds?" "Yes," Jake admitted. "But Admiral, we've seen what happens to species that can't fight the silence. Empty worlds, dead civilizations, entire star systems turned into graveyards." Murphy was quiet for another long moment. Then she activated her communicator. "Get me Earth Command, Priority Alpha." Full encryption. The next few hours were a blur of emergency meetings, encrypted communications, and desperate explanations. Earth Command was skeptical at first, but the evidence was overwhelming. The Melodian data, the demonstrations of musical abilities, and most convincingly, the long-range sensor readings that show dead star systems along the silence's path. Of advanced dot within 24 hours, humanity began the strangest mobilization in its history. Every human colony received the same message: learn to make music, practice every day. Your life depends on it. Music stores across human space sold out of instruments within days. Online music lessons crashed servers as millions of people tried to learn guitar, piano, violin, and drums all at once. Symphony halls became training centers. Rock concerts became practice sessions for sonic warfare. Jake found himself transferred to Earth, where he worked with a team of scientists and musicians to develop new techniques. They called it the Harmony Project, and it was humanity's crash course in musical warfare. "The key is emotion," he explained to a group of military officers who were learning to play various instruments. "The Melodians failed because their music was too perfect, too calculated. Human music works because it comes from feelings, not formulas." Commander Nicole Adams, a veteran starship captain, struggled with her violin. "I don't understand. How does being sad or angry make the music more effective?" "Because emotions create chaos in the sound waves," Lisa explained. She had become the project's chief scientist. "That chaos is what the silence can't predict or counter. When you play angry or sad or happy, you create unique patterns that have never existed before." Meanwhile, Ryan Torres had become something of a celebrity. Videos of him moving objects with his guitar had spread across human space, inspiring millions of people to practice harder. "I can feel it getting stronger," he told Jake during one of their training sessions. "The music isn't just sound anymore. It's like I'm touching something fundamental about how the universe works." Other humans were developing similar abilities. A jazz musician on Europa learned to create light patterns with her saxophone. A drummer on Titan discovered he could generate protective energy fields with his rhythms. Children seemed to learn fastest of all, their natural creativity making them powerful musical warriors with minimal training. But even as humanity prepared for war, reports came in from the outer rim. The silence had reached human space, and was consuming the frontier colonies one by one. "We're running out of time," Foster reported during a meeting at Earth Command. "The silence has taken 12 frontier worlds in the past month. At this rate, they'll reach the core systems in 6 months." Admiral Murphy, now in charge of humanity's musical defense, looked grim. "Are we ready?" Jake looked around the room at the officers and scientists who had spent months learning to fight with music instead of guns. "We have to be, because ready or not, the war is about to begin." Outside the windows of Earth Command, the planet's major cities hummed with constant music as 8 billion humans practiced for the most important performance of their lives. The first battle against the silence began at dawn on New Angeles, a mining colony in the Outer Rim. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the battleship Harmony, watching the enemy approach through the main screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. The silent ships looked like holes in space itself. They were not black, but something worse than black. They were empty, absorbing light and sound, and somehow making the universe feel smaller just by existing. There were dozens of them, moving in perfect silence toward the colony below. "All ships, this is Admiral Murphy," came the voice over the communication system. "Remember your training. Music is your weapon. Emotion is your ammunition. Make some noise." Captain Nicole Adams stood at the helm of the Harmony, her hand steady on the controls. The ship had been completely redesigned for musical warfare. Where other ships had weapon systems, the Harmony had massive speakers, resonance chambers, and a crew of 300 musicians instead of soldiers. "Battle stations," Adams ordered. "All musicians to your positions." Throughout the ship, people took their places at instruments instead of guns. In the main concert hall that had once been a weapons bay, a full orchestra prepared for the strangest performance in human history. Ryan Torres sat at the center with his guitar, surrounded by violins, drums, horns, and electronic instruments that had been modified with Melodian technology. "Here they come," Jake said, watching the silent ships get closer to the colony. The first attack was immediate and terrifying. The silent ships began emitting waves of absolute quiet that swept across space like invisible tsunamis. When the silent waves hit the outer defense stations, the human crews simply stopped moving. They did not die. They just became empty, standing still with blank expressions as if their souls had been turned off. "Ryan now!" Adams shouted. Ryan began playing and the ship filled with music. But this was not ordinary music. The sound waves from his guitar combined with the ship's resonance chambers, creating visible ripples in space that pushed back against the silence's quiet waves. The orchestra joined in, each instrument adding its voice to the growing symphony. Jake felt the music in his bones, in his blood, in the very air around him. The ship began to glow with harmonious energy. "It's working," Lisa Chun reported from her science station. "The silent ships are slowing down." But the enemy adapted. Quickly, the holes in space began to pulse with a dark rhythm that tried to cancel out the human music. For every note the humans played, the silence created an anti-note that made the sound disappear. "They're learning our patterns," Adams said. Grimly, "Then we change the patterns," Ryan replied. He switched from classical music to heavy metal, the harsh guitars and pounding drums creating chaos that the silence could not predict. Across the battlefield, other human ships joined the fight. Each ship played different music: jazz, folk, electronic, rock, classical, creating a cacophony that should have sounded terrible but somehow worked together. The silent ships began to shake and flicker as they struggled to counter the chaotic harmony. But humanity was still learning. 3 ships got too close to the enemy, and their crews fell silent before they could retreat. The ships drifted empty. Through space, their music stopped forever. "We need more power," Jake said. "The individual ships aren't strong enough." Adams understood immediately. "All ships, this is Captain Adams. Synchronize your music to our frequency. We're going to play as one." It was an incredibly difficult task. Dozens of ships, thousands of musicians, all trying to play the same song while flying through a battle zone. But humans had been practicing for months, and their natural ability to improvise served them well. Ryan began playing the modified version of Every Breath, U tape that Veltar had given them. The melody spread from ship to ship, each crew adding their own instruments and emotions to the growing composition. The song became a living thing, growing and changing as it moved through the human fleet. The effect was immediate and stunning. The combined music of the human fleet created a wave of harmonious energy that swept across the battlefield like a cosmic tsunami. The silent ships, caught in the wave, began to come apart at their molecular level, but the battle was far from over. More silent ships appeared, and these were different, larger, darker, more powerful. They began to emit silence waves so strong that they affected reality itself, making gravity fluctuate and time move in stutters. The main enemy force has arrived, Jake reported. Sensors show over 200 silent ships. The human fleet suddenly seemed very small. They had 30 ships and a few thousand musicians against an enemy that had destroyed civilizations. "All crews, this is Admiral Murphy," came the voice from the command ship. "We knew this would be hard, but remember why we fight. Remember, everyone. Counting on us. Make your music count." Ryan closed his eyes and thought about Earth, about all the people he was fighting to protect. When he began to play again, his guitar sang with pure emotion, love, fear, hope, and determination all mixed together in a sound that had never existed before. The other musicians felt it and joined in. The orchestra added layers of complexity. That turned Ryan's simple guitar melody into something approaching magic. Across the fleet, thousands of voices added their own feelings to the music. The silent ships tried to counter the new symphony, but they could not. Human emotion was too complex, too unpredictable. Every time they thought they had found a pattern, the humans changed it by feeling something different. One by one, the silent ships began to fall apart. But it was not destruction. It was transformation. As the human music reached them, the dark voids began to fill with light and color. The creatures that lived in the spaces between sounds were being pulled back into normal reality. "Look at the sensors," Lisa said in amazement. "The silent ships aren't being destroyed. They're being healed." Jake watched in wonder as enemy ships began to glow with the same harmonious energy as the human fleet. The creatures inside them, free from their existence as sound eaters, began to sing their own songs for the first time in millions of years. But the battle was not won yet. In the center of the enemy formation, a massive ship appeared, bigger than anything they had seen before. This was the Silence Mothership, ancient beyond measure and filled with the stolen songs of 1,000 destroyed civilizations. "That's the big one," Adams said. "If we can free that ship, we free all the consciousness it has consumed." Ryan looked at his guitar, then at his friends around him. "Then let's give them a concert they'll never forget." The final confrontation was about to begin, and the fate of the galaxy hung on the ability of one species to make beautiful music from chaos and emotion. The Silence Mothership was massive beyond imagination. Jake Morrison stared at it through the main screen and realized it was not just a ship. It was a graveyard containing the stolen music of every civilization the Silence had ever consumed. Dark tendrils reached out from its hull, trying to drain the sound from the human fleet. "All ships, fall back to minimum safe distance," Admiral Murphy ordered. "That thing is too dangerous to approach directly." But Ryan Torres had other ideas. He could feel something calling to him from inside the mothership, thousands of voices trying to sing, trapped in the spaces between silence. The stolen songs of dead civilizations were crying out for freedom. "Captain Adams," he said, "I need to get closer to that ship." "Absolutely not," Adams replied. "Those tendrils will drain your music before you can play a single note." "Then we need to give them too much music to drain," Ryan said. He turned to face the orchestra. "Everyone, I need you to trust me. We're going to play everything we know." All at the same time, Jake looked confused. "That will just create noise, not music." "No," Ryan said, his eyes bright with understanding. "It will create chaos. And chaos is what humans do best." Dr. Lisa Chun was already working at her computer. "I'm connecting our communication system to every human ship in the fleet. Whatever we play here will be broadcast to all of them." "This is crazy," Adams muttered, but she positioned the ship closer to the mothership anyway. Ryan began to play, but not the careful melodies they had practiced. Instead, he played every song he had ever learned, switching between them randomly, mixing rock and classical and jazz and folk all together in a wild musical storm. The orchestra followed his lead. Violins played children's lullabies while drums pounded out military marches. Horns blasted jazz while keyboards played electronic dance music. It should have sounded terrible, but somehow it worked. The chaos had its own kind of beauty, like a musical representation of the human spirit itself. Across the fleet, other musicians joined in. Every ship began broadcasting every song their crews knew. The space around the mothership filled with a cacophony of human music, love songs and war songs, happy melodies and sad ballads, ancient Earth classics and modern colonial compositions. The effect on the mothership was immediate and dramatic. The dark tendrils trying to drain their music began to writhe and twist, unable to process the chaotic flood of sound pouring toward them. The ship itself began to shake as if it was having trouble maintaining its existence. "It's working," Jake reported. "The mothership's silence fields are breaking down." But something unexpected began to happen. As the human music reached the trapped consciousness inside the mothership, other voices began to join the song. First just a few, then dozens, then thousands. The stolen songs of destroyed civilizations began to play again, adding their own melodies to the human chaos. "Listen," Lisa said in wonder. "Can you hear them? The dead species are singing again." The music of the galaxy began to fill space around them. Melodies that had been silent for millions of years rose from the mothership like ghosts returning to life. The crystal songs of the melodians, the wind music of the tree people, the mime melodies of the singers, all of them joined the human symphony, but the mothership was fighting back. Deep in its core, the original silence creatures, the first and most powerful of their kind, began to emit waves of absolute quiet that tried to stop all music everywhere. "The ship is trying to drain everything at once," Adams reported. "If it succeeds, it will create a dead zone that will spread across the galaxy." Ryan felt the pull of the silence, trying to steal his music. But instead of fighting it directly, he did something unexpected. He opened his heart and let every emotion he had ever felt pour into his guitar. Love for his friends, fear for his family, anger at the injustice of destroyed worlds, hope for the future, all of it became music. The other humans felt what he was doing and joined in. Jake thought about the first time he had seen the stars and played that wonder on his harmonica. Adams remembered her children on Earth and let that love power her singing voice. Lisa played her violin with the joy she felt when discovering something new. Across the fleet, millions of humans let their deepest emotions become music. Every hope, every fear, every memory of beauty and pain transformed into sound waves that could not be silenced. Because they came from the very essence of what it meant to be alive. The wave of emotional music hit the mothership like a tsunami of pure feeling. The ancient silence creatures, who had existed for millions of years without emotion, suddenly experienced love and joy and sorrow and hope all at once. The change was instant and overwhelming. The creatures who had spent eons consuming music began to create it instead. The mothership burst open like a flower blooming, releasing the trapped consciousness of every civilization it had consumed. "Look at the sensors," Jake said in amazement. "The dead worlds are coming back to life." Across space, planets that had been silent for centuries began to sing again. The consciousness that had been stored in the mothership returned to its home worlds, bringing music and life back to empty systems. The silence creatures themselves began to transform. No longer empty voids, they became beings of pure harmony, adding their voices to the galactic symphony. The spaces between sounds, which had once been their hunting grounds, became venues for the most beautiful music the universe had ever heard. Ryan stopped playing and looked around at his friends. The battle was over, but the music continued. Every human ship, every freed world, every transformed silence creature sang together in a harmony that spanned the galaxy. "We did it," Adams said quietly. "We actually did it." But Ryan was already thinking beyond the victory. "This is just the beginning. The silence came from outside our galaxy, which means there are other galaxies out there that need our help." Jake smiled. "So we become traveling musicians, spreading chaos and emotion across the universe? Why not?" Ryan replied. Humans are good at exploring, and now we know our music can heal any world that has fallen silent. Conductor Veltar's voice reached them across space, filled with gratitude and joy. The long watch is over. The galaxy lives again. Thank you, music makers of Earth. As the human fleet prepared to return home, they carried with them the knowledge that they had become something new, not just explorers or warriors, but healers who could bring life back to any world through the power of imperfect, emotional, chaotic human music. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and humanity would explore it all with songs in their hearts and music in their souls. Every breath they took would be a note in the great symphony of life, and they would never let the music stop again. Somewhere in space, a young violinist played a simple melody, and the stars themselves seemed to dance to her tune.